Hello, welcome to the Warframe Collective. Today, we are going to be taking a look at the Laetum because the Laetum is absolutely nasty, and I think the Laetum might be one of the best secondary incarnates that we have access to at current. Now, the base form of the Laetum is really not that impressive. As a matter of fact, the base form of the Laetum kinda reminds me of the Euphona, but it's still no slouch and it still deals a decent amount of damage when building up that incarnate meter. Now, the Laetum's incarnate form is where the real fun begins because the Laetum's incarnate form turns this thing into a SMG, and not just that, it's like an SMG with fucking concealed explosives on it. And I don't know if you have ever used concealed explosives on a throwing melee, but picture that on a goddamn SMG and you have the Laetum's incarnate form. And to pick the Laetum blueprint up, you will have to head to the Zaramon, and I believe it can be acquired from Cavallero for about 3,000 Zaramon standing. To be honest, all of the incarnate weapons that he sells are pretty good, although the melee weapons do fall a little short. I would definitely pick them up anyway, because in order to complete certain challenges for your incarnate, you'll need to complete a mission with 3 incarnate weapons equipped, so keep that in mind. But yeah, the Laetum only costs 3,000 standing, and that's a small price to pay for one of the best secondaries in the game. As for my incarnate evolution, now the first incarnate evolution is going to give you your incarnate form. The next one, I went with 20% extra fire rate because the Laetum just fires extremely slow, and out of the 3 options that are available, I considered plus 20 fire rate the best one by far. And so for the next one, I took on headshot 30% reload speed for 12 seconds. Once again, that doesn't sound too great, but I considered it better than the other ones that were available. Although the ammo efficiency one, you might want to think about that because the Laetum has a tendency to dump its whole load extremely fast. And so for the next one, I put plus 50% headshot damage. The other one I would possibly consider is the status chance. And for the last one, I did devouring attrition, 50% chance to deal plus 2,000 damage on non-criticals. And that just seemed like the best one to me. But now that I have used this weapon a lot, that ammo efficiency one doesn't seem like a bad idea. But this is my evolution. Next, we're gonna go ahead and head to the Simulacrum, and this is the build I am running on this thing. It's a simple corrosive build, and this thing just absolutely deals payloads of damage. As for viral, this is what I run for my viral setup, and magnetic, this is what I run for my magnetic setup. But today we're gonna be just working with the corrosive build. And once again, build whatever way you guys like. This is just what I decided to go with. So we're gonna be testing this out against some level 160 heavy gunners, as well as some Eximus units. And they don't necessarily put up a good fight against the Laetum. They're just not built to take the kind of abuse that the Laetrum's incarnate form is putting out. And as you can see, the base form is two-tapping these guys as long as I'm landing headshots. And then when it comes to the incarnate form just absolutely eats through these guys. And the Eximus units don't really fare any better, to be honest with you. So once again, guys, we are starting with the base form of the Laetrum. This is the base form because the base form is what you're going to be using in order to build up that incarnate meter. And as you can see, it takes about 3 shots to take down this guy's overguard and another 3 shots to kill him. And before I even took that guy out, I built up my incarnate meter completely. So as long as you're hitting those headshots, you'll build up that incarnate meter really fast and you will absolutely melt any enemies in your path as long as you have a slightly decent build on this thing. So next, we're just gonna be going straight incarnate. And as you can see, the straight up incarnate form just eats through these guys. Like, these guys are finished in seconds, and these are level 160 heavy gunners. And I'm tapping the trigger because this thing can absolutely eat through your ammo if you're not careful. That's why the ammo efficiency perks may not be a bad idea. And as you can see, the Laetrum just absolutely chews through these guys like it's no tomorrow. The Laetrum is an absolute beast. Now, we've seen what the weapon performs like in a controlled environment, so now we're gonna unpause the AI and we're gonna see what it performs like in live combat, because as we all know, a lot of times your results will vary in live combat. And as you can see, as long as you hit those headshots, you build up that incarnate form pretty quickly, and this thing still absolutely chews through these guys. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend using this thing with Ureli. Look at that, did you see that? This thing proc Pack Seeker. Did you see that? This thing totally, look at that. This thing is proccing Pack Seeker. I guess that's because I have a kick gun as my primary, but that's still a little odd to see the Laetrum proc Pack Seeker. But yeah, as you guys can see, the Laetrum is an absolute beast. We're gonna do that one more time because blink and you'll miss it, and it was just so much fun. So we're gonna do that one more time. And as you can see, the Laetrum is just an absolute monster. And as long as you hit those headshots, you build up that incarnate meter really quick. And see, this thing does proc Pack Seeker, but it looks like when this thing procs Pack Seeker, the Pack Seeker bolts aren't as strong as when a normal kit gun would proc Pack Seeker, because I've seen Pack Seeker bolts hit for like almost like 500k. But yeah, now we're gonna take this thing to the still path and we're gonna see how it performs. And the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna test it out against some infested. And as you can see, the incarnate meter is building up extremely slow for the simple fact that it's much harder to hit headshots on infested, or at least for me personally. I know you're probably a badass and your aim is probably a lot better than mine. Also, this is another reason why I wouldn't recommend using this thing with Ureli, because it really doesn't vibe with her gimmick, but it still absolutely deals payloads with her passive. But yeah, as you can see, this thing does deal payloads of damage when you build up that incarnate form. It just absolutely chews through these guys. These guys aren't built for what the incarnate is putting out. But one thing I will say is When you're going up against infested, be careful, because those fuckers right there, the toxic ancients, those guys are your worst enemy. Like, those toxic ancient dudes just deal so much toxic damage that you gotta be careful. If one of those guys runs next to you and fucking uses Saren's 4 on you, then it's not a pretty time. And as you can see, even the goddamn Acolyte can't deal with what this thing is putting out, as we melted that guy in less than 3 seconds. So next, we're going to be moving on to some Grineer and seeing how the weapon performs. And as you can see, when you build up that incarnate meter and you switch to the weapon's incarnate form, this thing does absolutely deal some chunky damage, especially considering the fact that Grineer usually have a much higher armor threshold than other enemies in the game. As a matter of fact, at one point right here, it looks like someone's syndicate is coming after them, so they spawned in some chunky boys, and this thing still absolutely wrecks these guys. And at some point I even run out of my incarnate form, but I just run over here and I quickly spam the fire button, and I do manage to build it back up pretty quickly after a couple mishaps, of course. But yeah, when you're building up the incarnate form, it really helps a lot if you can land some headshots on the Eximus enemies, because the Eximus enemies, obviously their headshots count for much more than the normal enemies. But yeah, the Laetum is an absolute beast, and I would highly recommend it. Next, we're going to be taking this thing to Jupiter, and we're going to be killing some Corpus. And right here, I got the capture target ahead of me, so I melt this dude right here. I melt the capture target, and I want to get to his location. As you can see, the Laetum has no problem dealing with these guys. I fucking fuck up my jump right here, right? And I get spawned back at the beginning of the mission. I don't know what's been going on with Warframe lately, but this shit's been glitching out lately. So I hop back on my K drive and I proceed to delta my ass back to the capture target's location. That way I can claim my prize. So right here, I use fucking transference, and like, it doesn't even work. I use transference and it doesn't even work. I use fucking Void Sling, formerly Void Dash, and it barely worked. The game's just been glitching out lately. And that's not the last time it glitched out either. It glitched out a couple times throughout this mission, but at this point, I wasn't really tripping off it. Look at this pose right here. Like, what the fuck is this? I don't know what's going on with the Warframe lately, but the framework of the game has just been on the fritz lately. So here we have the Acolyte, and as you can see, the incarnate form melts this dude extremely fast, but I do kind of lose track of this guy right here, and I don't know what the fuck was going on. My weapon glitches out right here. I can't use my gun. I literally can't use my gun. So I had to like deactivate my K drive ability, then reactivate it. I don't know what the fuck is going on. It's just been amateur hour over here at the Collective today, so pardon my dust. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening to me ramble on. If you enjoyed the video or you found anything helpful, please like and subscribe to the Collective. I greatly appreciate it. Now, the best thing you can do for me at this point is just to have a beautiful day. Thank you so much, guys. Peace.